There is a chicken carcass sitting in a great many kitchens tonight, picked over from supper, the good meat gone, and it is headed for the bin. A pile of bones, a few scraps of skin, the back and the wings nobody wanted. To most folks, that is garbage now, the part you throw away once the eating is done. They scrape it off the plate and into the trash without a second thought, and they have no idea, none at all, that they are throwing away the best part. Not the cheapest part, the best part. Because inside those bones, locked up in them, is something richer and more nourishing and more flavorful than the meat ever was. And it costs you nothing to get it out, nothing but a pot of water and a little time and a fire kept low. I am talking about bone broth, and I will tell you plainly, a jar of good, golden, homemade broth is one of the most valuable things to ever come out of a kitchen, and nearly everyone alive is throwing the makings of it straight into the garbage. My family has never once bought a can or a box of broth in our lives, and we never will, because we have always known what the bones hold. Tonight I am going to show you how to draw it out, the old slow way, and turn a pile of scraps the rest of the world calls trash into something so good and so useful you will wonder how you ever threw it away. Let me show you, step by step. There is almost nothing to it but patience. Before I go further, I want to say one quick thing. The old methods my family uses, there is more of it than fits in any one video. I gathered the whole of it into a book at eliasyoder.com. The book is the long version. If you want it, it is there. I will not mention it again. Now, the first thing to understand is what we are doing and why it works. Because once you understand it, you will never throw a bone away again as long as you live. A bone is not a dead, empty thing. A bone is full of goodness, marrow deep inside it, and all through it a kind of binding stuff that holds an animal together, the same stuff that makes the meat tender and the joints move. When you put those bones in water and hold them at a low simmer for a long, long time, hours and hours, all of that slowly melts and leaches out of the bone and into the water. The marrow gives up its richness. The joints and the knuckles and the feet, if you have them, give up something that turns the broth thick and silky and makes it set up like a soft jelly when it cools. And that is the sign of a truly good broth, that it goes to jelly in the cold. The water draws the very strength out of the bones and holds it, and what you are left with is not water anymore. It is liquid gold. It is the whole goodness of the animal, the part that was left behind when the meat was eaten, pulled out and saved. And I will tell you, the old folks set great store by a good broth. When someone was poorly, when a body was worn down or just up from a sickness and could not face solid food, it was broth that was set before them, warm and golden, and they swore by it to build a person back up. I am no doctor, and I will make no doctor's claims to you, but I will tell you that folks have reached for a warm cup of bone broth to comfort and strengthen the sick and the tired for longer than anyone can remember, and there is a reason a thing stays in use that long. My grandmother kept a pot of it going on the back of the stove through every winter of her life, and there was always a cup to be had for whoever needed warming. That is tradition enough for me. I can see her kitchen still if I close my eyes. There was a great heavy pot that lived on the back corner of her cook stove from the first frost clear through to spring, and it was never quite empty and never quite the same twice. A bird's bones went in one week, a ham bone the next, a handful of scraps whenever there were scraps, and water added whenever it cooked down, so that the pot was always going, always giving, like a little spring that never ran dry. When any of us came in from the cold, red-cheeked and chilled to the bone from chores, she would ladle out a cup of it, plain, just the warm golden broth, and put it in our hands, and it would warm you from the inside out in a way that no other thing quite did. When one of the little ones was sick and would keep nothing else down, it was that broth, sipped slow. I did not think of it as anything special then. It was just grandmother's pot, always there, like the stove itself. It was only when I was grown and saw other kitchens without one that I understood what a treasure that simple, never-empty pot had been. So let us make it. And the beauty of this is there is no real recipe to it, only a way. And once you know the way, you can never get it wrong. We begin with the bones. Tonight I am using the carcass of a roasted chicken, the bones left after a good bird was eaten, and this is the most common way and a fine one. But hear me, any bones will do, and let me tell you a little of what each one gives because it is worth knowing. The bones from any roasted bird, chicken or turkey, give you a light, clean, golden broth, gentle and comforting, the everyday kind. Beef bones, especially the big knuckle and marrow bones, give you a darker, deeper, heartier broth with real body to it, the kind to build a beef stew or a rich gravy on, and the butcher will often near give those bones away because folks have forgotten to want them. A ham bone, the one left after a Sunday ham, gives a broth with a lovely, smoky, salted depth, wonderful for a bean soup. And if ever you have the feet of a chicken, or the knuckles and joints of any animal, throw them in without fail, because those joints and feet hold the most of that binding goodness, the very stuff that turns a broth thick and silky and sets it to jelly in the cold. Save them all. I keep a bag in the cold box, and every time we have a bird or a roast, the bones go into that bag, and when the bag is full, it is broth day. Nothing is wasted, and the bones wait on me until I am ready. Now here is one step worth doing that lifts a good broth to a great one. If your bones are not already roasted, roast them first. Lay them on a pan in a hot oven until they go deep brown, near an hour. Already roasted bones from a supper bird are perfect as they are. What the roasting does is brown the bones, and that browning is where a deep, rich, dark flavor comes from, the difference between a pale, weak broth and a deep, golden one that tastes of something. So roasted bones, always, whether they came roasted from your supper or you brown them yourself. The browned bones go into your biggest pot. And now the vegetables, which give the broth its backbone of flavor. You do not need much, and you do not need it pretty, because this is a waste-nothing dish through and through. An onion, halved, skin and all. The skin gives a lovely golden color. A couple of carrots, no need to peel them, just give them a rough chop. A couple of ribs of celery if you have them. And here is the thrift of it. All the scraps you would have thrown away can go in this pot. The onion ends, the carrot peels and tops, the celery leaves, the leek trimmings, whatever vegetable scraps you saved through the week. I keep a second bag in the cold box just for those scraps, right alongside the bone bag, and into the broth they go. The garbage of the week becomes the gold of the weekend. For the seasoning, keep it simple and old. A few whole peppercorns, a couple of bay leaves, a sprig or two of thyme if you have it, or whatever hardy herb your garden gives, a clove of garlic, smashed. And here is one small thing that matters more than folks know. A splash of vinegar, just a spoonful or two of plain vinegar into the water. You will not taste it in the end, but while it cooks, that little bit of acid helps draw the goodness, the minerals, right out of the bones and into the broth. The old cooks did this without knowing the why of it, and it works. A spoonful of vinegar in the pot. Now cover it all with cold water, a good few inches over the top of everything, and bring it up slow. And here is the whole secret of a clear, good broth, and it is the one rule you must not break. Once it comes up toward a boil, turn it down. down low as your fire will go, and still keep a bare, lazy simmer, just a bubble breaking the surface now and then. You do not boil a broth. A hard rolling boil churns it up and beats the fat and the scraps together and turns your broth cloudy and greasy and dull. A low, slow simmer, barely moving, draws everything out gentle and leaves you a broth that is clear and clean and golden. Low and slow, that is the whole of it. In the first while, as it comes up, a gray foam will rise to the top. That is just impurities from the bones coming out, and you skim it off with a spoon and discard it a few times in the first hour, and after that it settles and you can leave it be. And now comes the only hard part of the whole thing, which is the waiting. And it is not hard at all, because the pot does the work while you do whatever you please. You let it simmer, and simmer, and simmer. For a chicken carcass, 4 hours at the least, and better 6 or 8. For heavy beef bones, longer still, a day even, the pot kept at that bare simmer hour after hour. The longer it goes, the more it draws from the bones, the richer and deeper and more golden it becomes. My grandmother's pot, as I said, sat at the back of the stove for days at a stretch, topped up with water, always giving. You cannot really overdo it. You can only make it richer. While it goes, keep an eye that the water stays up over the bones, and add a little more hot water if it cooks down too far. Beyond that, leave it be. Let the house fill with the smell of it, which is one of the great comforting smells there is, and let the pot do its slow, quiet work. When it is done, when it has gone deep and golden and smells rich and full, you strain it. Set a colander over another big pot or bowl and pour the whole thing through, and all the spent bones and soft vegetables and herbs stay behind in the colander, their goodness given up entirely into the liquid. Those spent scraps go to the compost or the pigs now, for they have nothing left to give. What runs through into the pot below, that clear golden liquid, that is your broth. That is the treasure. Let it cool, and then into jars and into the cold cellar or the cold box, where it keeps a good while, or into the freezer, where it keeps for months. And when it goes cold, look at it, and if you did it right, it will have set up into a soft, wobbly jelly, and that jelly is the mark of a broth done well, full of all the good, rich body drawn out of the bones. It melts back to golden liquid the moment you warm it. And there it is. From a pile of bones the rest of the world throws in the bin, a cellar shelf or a freezer full of rich, golden broth, worth more than near anything you could buy, and it cost you nothing at all. You drink it warm from a cup on a cold day. You cook your rice and your beans in it instead of plain water, and they taste of 100 times more. You build your soups and your stews and your gravies on it. It is the quiet, golden foundation under good cooking, and the old kitchens were never without it. Let me give you a word on keeping it, because a thing this good you want to have on hand at all times, not just the week you make it. Broth freezes as well as anything in the world. Once it is cooled and strained, pour it into jars, leaving room at the top because it swells as it freezes, or into any tub or container you have, and it will keep good for months in the freezer. I like to freeze some in small portions, a cup or two at a time, so that when I only need a little to start a gravy or moisten a pan of dressing, I can pull just what I need and leave the rest frozen. Some folks freeze it in the little cube trays, then tip the frozen cubes into a bag so they can grab a cube or two whenever a dish wants just a spoonful of richness. That way, a single broth day keeps your kitchen in golden broth for half a year, always a little ready to hand. Label your jars with the date, because once it is frozen golden in the jar, one batch looks much like another, and you will want to use the oldest first. And do not forget, a broth is not only for soup. Anytime a recipe calls for water, ask yourself whether broth would not do better, because near always it will. The water you would boil potatoes in, the liquid for your rice, the splash to loosen a pan of gravy, the base of a sauce. Everywhere you would have used plain water, a little broth lays down a quiet richness underneath the whole dish that folks will taste without ever knowing why. That is the secret of so much good old cooking, that humble golden depth under everything, and it came free out of bones. Now I want to be plain about who profits from you throwing those bones away. Walk down the soup aisle and you will see them, the cans and the boxes and the little cubes, broth and stock for sale, dollars apiece, and read what is in them sometime. Water mostly, and salt, a great deal of salt, and flavorings made in a plant to imitate the taste of the real thing, and often barely a whisper of any actual bone at all. They are selling you a pale fake of a thing you could make better at home for nothing, from what you are already throwing away. A whole great business stands on the simple fact that folks have forgotten the bones are worth keeping. Nobody schemed to make us throw away the best part of the animal and then buy back a weak copy of it in a can. It is worse than that. It is just a system nobody coordinated, a slow drift where every year folks did a little less for themselves and bought a little more already made, until the richest, most nourishing thing a kitchen could make, free from scraps, became a thing people pay good money for in a watered-down version, while throwing the real makings in the trash. The old way knew better. The old way kept every bone and was never without a pot of gold on the back of the stove. Now tell me something down in the comments. Did someone in your family keep a broth or a stock pot going, a grandmother or a mother who never threw a bone away, who always had something warm and golden to ladle out? I would dearly love to hear about them and their pot. Tell me. Next time I am going to show you the very best thing to do with a jar of this golden broth, because broth is the beginning and not the end. I am going to take this broth and turn it into a hearty chicken soup, the kind with tender meat and carrots and potatoes swimming in that rich golden liquid, the kind of bowl that warms you to your boots on a cold day and has comforted the sick and the well alike for as long as there have been kitchens. The broth is the foundation. Next time we build the house on it. Until then, take good care of the ones at your table, and keep a kitchen that wastes nothing, not even the bones.